Meetings Act that notice of this meeting has been provided by notifying the Asbury Park Press, the Two River Times, and the Star Ledger, and by placing a notice on the bulletin board and filing same with the Borough Clerk on January 1, 2018.
Thank you. Is there a motion to suspend the regular order of business? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Before we do that, let me just advise that on the workshop agenda, there's one item, Borough Administrative Ordinance. That should be tabled for a little bit of further discussion with our attorney. So is there a motion to table that? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Having said that, we will move on to the suspended order of business. There's Older Americans Month 2018. You know, it said Older Americans Month, and she said Jackie's here. Jackie's not old.
That's right.
Our intrepid director of the Senior Center with board member Dorothy Davis, Mom Davis, Le Grand Dame de Redneck. And the proclamation is as follows. Whereas the Borough of Red Bank includes countless older Americans who enrich and strengthen our community, and whereas the Borough of Red Bank is committed to engaging and supporting older adults, their families, and caregivers, and whereas we acknowledge the importance of taking part in activities that promote physical, mental, and emotional well-being, no matter your age, and whereas the Borough of Red Bank can enrich the lives of individuals of every age by promoting home and community-based services that support independent living, involving older adults in community planning, events, and other activities, and providing opportunities for older adults to work, volunteer, learn, read, lead, and mentor. Now therefore, I, Pasquale Mena, Mayor of the Borough of Red Bank, do hereby proclaim May 2018 to be Older Americans Month in the Borough of Red Bank, and urge every resident to take the time during this month to recognize older adults and people who serve them as vital parts of our community. And I should note, as you know, Jackie, that we do have a couple of centenarians having a birthday this month, so the year must be good for centenarians. I think we have a 104th birthday and 100th birthday, and so we'll be celebrating those also. Jackie, or would you like to say something briefly? Jackie Reynolds and Dorothy Davis.
Just if anybody wants to come visit us, please come. It's open house in May and June. Come down and visit us and see. All right.
And you don't have to be old to go there, right?
No.
They don't check your AARP card.
No.
Councilman Byrne goes there a lot. Next, we have presentation to Parks and Recreation intern Alex McCourt. And I believe Charlie or Eric? Both. I know Alex is here with his family, the supporting cast of characters.
Let's go on about. So we wanted to welcome Alec today. He's part of our internship program with the charter school. I want to welcome his principal, who's here as well, as Mr. McCarrick. We had the great pleasure of working with him for about 60 to 90 minutes a week since the fall. And he's kind of our target audience, being an 8th grader. So we basically said, hey, what do kids your age want to do? So he was in charge of a lot of things, one of which was we handed him a book and said, go pick out all the summer movies. So for the thousands of people that come to the movies, you're going to get a big pat on the back, or if the park's empty, we're all in a lot of trouble. But he was an absolute professional to work with. I wish we could hire him full time, but he's got about 8 more years of school, so we'll have to pause on that one. We also said, hey, give us a kind of a cool new project that can be your staple, which was his capstone project. And he said, you know, he loves skiing, so he booked a mountain, he got us tickets, he advertised it, prayed for snow, and we had a great ski trip. And that's one of the things that's going to leave a lasting impression of Red Bank, where years from now we'll be flying to Colorado, and none of that would have happened without Alec. So maybe we can just give him a round of applause.
behalf of Council Yingstrom, as well as the entire council, and I know that your principal is here, as Mr. Meredith is here, Panati, as well as your parents and other members of the charter school family. And I want to give a shout out to Meredith Panati, because I remember about 10 years ago maybe, she came to us and she said, I want to do an internship program with businesses and the community and Red Bank, and she said, I want to involve the youngest of our children. And there were all sorts of naysayers in this particular building who said, no, we can't do it because of liability, we can't do it because we don't want to be a babysitter. But as it turned out, the interns and the apprentices that we've had have actually been babysitters for us. They've told us how to do the right thing. So Alex, on behalf of all of us, the older people, I want to thank you, and I don't want you to file a child labor law complaint on minimum wage. But congratulations, my friend.
I just want to say thank you for everyone who let me have this amazing opportunity. Charlie, Councilman Yingstrom, and Mayor Mena. Thank you.
We're working on his younger brother to be the next apprentice. Thanks. Appreciate it.
He's here. He's ready.
Okay, and next we have a presentation to Coach John Truhan III. Eric, is that you also? Okay. The proclamations as follows. Whereas Red Bank Regional High School appointed John Truhan III as their head girls basketball coach in September 2017 when the previous coach left to take a position with Monmouth University, and whereas Coach Truhan has enjoyed a 23-year-long career in education with 18 years of coaching basketball, and he is a member of the New Jersey State Coaches Hall of Fame, who during his coaching career has acquired 324 wins. And whereas this was expected to be a rebuilding year following the team achieving its best record in over a decade, graduating 7 of its players and losing their coach to Monmouth University. And whereas the members of the team did not meet Coach Truhan until 2 weeks before the season began, but went on to equal their previous year's record of 17-12 and advance to the state section semifinals. And of course, I know all of this stuff, right? And whereas, because of the amazing feat, Coach Truhan was named New Jersey's Girls High School Basketball Coach of the Year by the Hoop Group, a worldwide leader in basketball instruction. And whereas our Red Bank Regional High School Athletic Director, Del Pra, has called Coach Truhan a wonderful addition to the school's coaching staff, and he has been praised by members of his team for his encouraging of them to believe in themselves, instilling a work ethic and to focus on their strengths, which resulted in a stronger team mentality. And whereas Coach Truhan said he views this Coach of the Year honor as a team award because they did all of the work, and says he hopes to build on their success in the coming year. Now therefore, I, Pasquale Mena, Mayor of the Borough, I hereby commend and congratulate John S. Truhan III for his dedication to the youth of our community. Offer our sincerest thanks for his service, and wish him good luck, health, and happiness for the future. Congratulations. My neighbor. Eric, or Coach, would you like to say a few words?
Again, this is very humbling. Thank you to members of the council, Mayor Mena. This is really a team award. Like I said, the kids did all the work themselves, and they did everything. It was I'd like to thank Mr. Dalper for taking a chance on me, and meeting the team for the first time in November. It was, you know, a match made in heaven. Everybody was all in, and from the first day of practice, we just kept getting better. And the future looks bright. We only lose one senior this year, which is a big loss in Bridget Tobin. But We're going to try and build upon it, and I don't believe in rebuilding. I believe in reloading, and the future looks bright. But thank you so much. I felt welcome from day one since I've been there, and look forward to continued success at Red Bank Regional. Thank you so much.
All right, is there a motion to resume the regular work? Oh, I'm sorry, we're not, actually, we're continuing with the budget introduction. And Councilman Ballard or Chuck Fallon, our auditor, or Councilman Ballard?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to say a few brief words about this budget. Today I present to you, my fellow council members, the Finance Committee's proposed 2018 budget. I just want to say some thank yous to our Finance Committee, Mark Taylor, and Borough President Ed Zipridge. Mayor Mena, I want to thank you for sitting in on some of those meetings and sharing your wisdom and experience. Our CFO, our hardworking Eugenia Polos, who spent many hours revising the budget and responding to all the different things that were thrown at her over the last couple of months, and she did a commendable, wonderful job. Thank you very much for your work. Our interim BAs, Mr. Kendra Roberts and Joe Hartnett, they brought the outsider's perspective to our budget process that I don't think we've seen before, and it was invaluable. And our borough auditor, Mr. Chuck Fallon, sitting next to me, he brought his wisdom and his years of experience to the process also. It's important to mention each of you for your tireless efforts, countless hours spent in doggedness and leaving no stones unturned, working to help craft this budget. The input each of you provided is greatly appreciated. As the governing body of this borough, we all know there's a lot of hard work in front of us in the coming months to implement the course corrections that we all know Red Bank desperately needs. I'm confident that you are as dedicated and committed as I am to making the hard choices necessary to put Red Bank on the right path going forward, financially as well as operationally. The new administrator, Ziad Andrew Shihadi, coming on board next week, and a game plan born out of the Management Enhancement Report produced by Government Strategy Group, led by Mr. Roberts and Mr. Hartnett. I'm excited for Red Bank's future, as I hope you are as well. The budget presented to you tonight is the first step in moving the borough of Red Bank into that promising future. Thank you, and happy Mother's Day.
Chuck, is there anything you'd like to add as our auditor?
Yes, sure. Thank you, Mayor. In the borough's 2018 budget up for introduction tonight, the total general operating appropriations are the same as the prior year. The borough's statutory pension appropriations, however, have increased by $100,000, causing the combined total operating appropriations to increase $100,000. On the revenue side, the borough is anticipating $480,000 less in miscellaneous revenue than the prior year, as certain reserves and other sources of revenues are not available for use in the current year budget as they have been in the past. Overall, the budget is compliant with both the state appropriation cap and the 2% levy cap, with over $1.5 million cushion in both cap calculations. Including the increase proposed in this budget, the average increase over the last 6 years is under 1.5%. And I would like to remind the public that the budget is not final. There will be a public hearing on June 13th when the mayor and council may make further changes. Thank you.
Okay. Any members of the Finance Committee have any questions prior to introduction? Again, this is not, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that this is not the actual adoption of the budget, but it's the statutory introduction. and the public hearing will be on June 13, 2018. Prior to the public hearing, there will be a number of explanatory communiques that will be issued by the borough and by our staff, and there will be a public hearing by the Finance Committee also prior to the introduction of the budget, prior to the adoption of the budget. I want to thank Councilman Ballard as well as the committee for its work on this. There are a number of different things that I think we've had to deal with for the past number of years, hopefully, which we will be changing, as Michael said. Primary of those concerns have been the extraordinary losses in terms of the tax appeal and the refunding basis for those tax appeals. And it doesn't really help a town like Red Bank when we have to do that. For the simple reason that even though we have to refund, but part of those refunds were already paid to the county as well as the school districts, and of course when we make a refund it comes directly out of the taxpayers' pockets. We can't go to the county and say, okay, well, we had to refund on a successful tax appeal, so we want your refund back to us. They will say, thank you for calling us, but we're not interested. And so it is borne by the municipality, but we are moving forward, and that's going to be part of the explanatory comments prior to the adoption of the budget, including a very aggressive, for the first time in history, taking proactive steps, as Councilman Ballard has been encouraging and the Finance Committee has authorized, in taking strident proactive appeals against not-for-profits who are not tax exempt fully, and we are in litigation with them. And we will, in my opinion, be successful. First time Red Bank has ever done that. For the first time in the history of Red Bank, a couple of months ago, the council authorized the filing of appeals on behalf of the borough against commercial property owners for being undervalued. So what they've been doing to us, we finally turned on them, and I think we will be very successful in that. So that those are just two minor things which are going to be rolled out. There's going to be a lot of other issues.
And I'd just like to add, Mayor, I talked about the grant consultant that the governing body has already approved and put in motion. Our grant consultant will start work on the 15th, I think the same day as VIAC comes aboard. So we're looking to bring in money that way. You have to remember this budget is a statutory requirement, and there are a lot of things that we want to do after we introduce this budget that's going to help us in the long run mitigate our need for tax increases going forward. One of the things that we've introduced in our budget process is a 5-year look, and not just looking at our budget for this year and trying to set a goal for a single year. We're looking long term, and this budget has impact next year and the year after that and the year after that, and we're going to start taking that into account to make sure we get to the right place. And I mentioned before that looking forward to working with these my colleagues up here to help make that happen. I think we're all committed to making that happen. Thank you.
Assuming that the council votes to introduce the introduced budget will be on the borough's website tomorrow morning, and hard copies will be available to anyone interested at the clerk's office. So any other comment by any other?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, Mayor, a big thank you to the whole team, to yourself, Mayor, to Mark, and especially to Michael. He's been a great new addition to the finance team this year. As Michael said, the CFO has worked countless hours, oftentimes late into the night. This 5-year planning process and forecasting process will enable the borough to have a greater footing going forward. We have had some great input from both Ken and Joe and all of the department heads, and it's been a great pleasure to work with everybody on that. So thank you.
And Mayor, I'd just like to add, while I know the budget is challenging every year, there is no money currently appropriated for a master plan in this year's budget, which I personally think is an oversight. We need to do a master plan in Red Bank, and hope that my fellow council members and the mayor would take that under serious consideration to try to find. I know the grant consultant coming on board may help us with some of it, but it will not pay the full weight of a master plan that's comprehensive.
Your comments, Mark, were extraordinarily illuminating, and it's not something that we have deliberately overlooked. But I believe that you're part of one of the committees that I established at the beginning of the year, which I think before the end of the year, and hopefully in the next couple of weeks, that and another committee will make some pretty strong announcements that will result in funding availability for that to take place. It's just looking at the budget, and frankly, I didn't mention one of the hard points of this budget is that one of our not-for-profits was contributing roughly in excess of $200,000, but because we are in litigation, they decided to not pay us a penny. Maybe in an effort to try to make us cave. Well, we're not caving, we're fighting harder because it's the right thing to do. So that was part of the problem with this budget. So it's a tough budget. We've had to make tough decisions, but I think the public should know why we're in the situation we are.
And further to the point, Councilman, part of that 5-year plan includes money for the master plan. And that's why I think this is such a great idea to look forward, not just this year. It's in the plan. So
I know that, and I agree. I just think we really should have done this 5 years earlier instead of 5 years from now.
It just came on to every
I'm not saying the 5-year plan is a separate issue. I'm happy that we're looking forward as well, but it does need to be addressed.
You are a smart man, Mark, and you're a colleague and a fellow attorney, and of course you know that we've sat together, we've tried to carve out that in prior years. There were other emergencies. So that is important. It will be done, but I think that the two committees that were set up will create that mechanism and funding. So we're going to get it. We're going to start it this year. It's no problem. Anybody else?
I just have one quick question. Will there be a budget presentation by any chance? Will it be like a separate, or like have a similar event?
That's what I indicated.
I just wasn't sure.
The budget presentation is going to be by the committee. We've done that, and Councilman Dowd will announce that date, and it'll be here. And obviously, the public hearing is going to be on the 13th. Anything else? Anybody else? If not, is there a motion to introduce ordinance 2018-13 to exceed the municipal budget appropriations of the CAPNet?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Taylor?
Yes.
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilman Yangstrom?
Yes.
Councilman Ballard?
Yes.
Councilman Zipperich?
Yes.
Councilwoman Morgan? Yes.
Okay, the public hearing on that will be on June 13th, 2018, and there will be a separate publicized notice for the townwide open forum on that before the 13th of June at 6:30 p.m. For a resolution authorizing the introduction of 2018 municipal budget, resolution 16-126, is there a motion, Councilman Ballard?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Zipperich?
Yes.
Councilwoman Morgan? Yes. Councilman Taylor?
Yes.
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilman Yangstrom?
Yes.
Councilman Ballard?
Yes.
Okay, the resolution is adopted. Is there a motion to... Is there...
I told
Sometimes it's difficult to respond to one's name. Is there a motion to resume the regular order of business?
So move.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, for workshop, commercial solid waste collection ordinance, just by way of preamble, I think this is an easy fix. A number of years ago, the municipality adopted a commercial waste collection ordinance that deals with commercial waste of anything not covered by the ordinary ordinance requirement for individual pickup. The primary bulk of this ordinance's effect is on commercial pickups in generally the business districts, and it includes mostly food service, retail, as well as alcohol establishments and other places. The problem is that even though it's been an ordinance that has worked, when it was adopted, the ordinance has been silent respecting the hours of pickup. And it has caused some conflict with some of our businesses, the pickup and the residential component of the town. I've spoken with a number of businesses, and frankly, you know, they're okay with telling their carters to pick up only during certain times. But the problem is the carters don't have to listen to them because there's nothing in the ordinance that says that. So for some of the carters, it actually makes sense to do it in the middle of the night, since they don't have to waste a lot of time in traffic and backup, but so it's easier for them. But so to solve the problem without impacting the businesses, I would suggest that we amend Chapter 590, Article 4, and in the solid waste ordinance which we have, which only incorporates the requirements for commercial pickup, doesn't include DPW because we don't pick up for commercial elements, and would be 590-24, which is the part that includes private collection is required, and it says every retail food establishment must have its own solid waste collected by a legally qualified solid waste collector. Collection shall occur daily or at such other frequencies and in such manner as to avoid or prevent a public health annoyance or nuisance, including but not limited to the development of odors and the attraction of vermin, but in no event shall collection be less than twice per week. The frequency of it, as well as the health issue, has not been an issue since the ordinance has been adopted by PROP. So I would encourage the council to adopt a time element that would reflect that these collections shall take place no earlier than such a time in the morning or no later than such a time in the evening. So the question is, I don't think it should be prior to 6 a.m. in the morning, and the question is, what should be the sunset, no pun intended, the sunset hour for the evening?
What are people complaining about? I mean, what time are they saying that these carters come in with them?
Well, no, it's not uniform, but I mean, generally speaking, it's not even the restaurants, it's mostly the bars, because when a lot of glass is compacted, some of them are 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. So we want to prevent that. And they make a lot of noise if you have 300, 400 beer cans or beer bottles being crunched at the same time. Must have been quite a party, I guess. So we can, I mean, what time?
No earlier than 6?
No earlier than 6, but can't be picked up after what hour at night? I'm sorry? I think that's too early. Yeah, I mean, I don't, other than the person that's 104 that we're going to give out a certificate to, I don't think too many people go to sleep at 8 p.m. 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 11? I mean, I'm open. I just don't think it should be prior to 6 a.m. in the morning.
11.
11? I think that's fair. In other words, the BPU regulations are adopted by the state, says municipalities can't unreasonably restrict the pickup of solid waste from their sites. In other words, you can't have a blanket say, you know, solid waste can only be picked up between, say, 6 o'clock and 9 o'clock in the morning. So here we're saying solid waste can't be picked up if we take 10 or 11 o'clock, not after 11 and not before 6 a.m. So what's the council's pleasure? 11?
We need to adjust it.
I think that's fair. That's reasonable. All right, so the ordinance will be amended that,
So will be introduced tonight.
if you want, can we introduce it? Yeah, we can. 11? All right, so.
Mayor, I just had a quick question. Since we're talking about noise, will this impact the noise ordinance as well? Do we need to modify that?
This is specific, I don't think it looks it.
Okay.
All right, so the ordinance would be, what number are you going to give it?
18.
All right, so the ordinance would be 2018-18 for introduction only. Not before 6, well, it should be not after 11 p.m., not before 6 a.m. I think that covers it.
That's good, Mayor, and I just wanted to quickly, I appreciate getting this put on the agenda. I reached out to Pam on Monday inquiring about this, and 2 days later, we're acting on it, so I appreciate your responsiveness.
When Michael talks, I act.
Mayor, I want to thank you for volunteering to enforce it 2 in the morning. Thank you.
Okay, so the ordinance 5090-24, private collection required, shall include the language after the omnibus language that I already read, that in no event shall collection be less than twice per week and shall be collected and shall not be collected between the hours of 11 p.m. through 6 a.m. Okay? Is there a motion to introduce?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call. Do we need it? What's
No,
the
it's
introduction?
Councilman Taylor?
Yes.
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilman Yangstrom?
Yes.
Councilman Ballard?
Yes.
Councilman Zipperich?
Yes.
Councilwoman Horgan?
All right, introduce the public hearing will be June 13, 2018 at 6:30 p.m.
Actually,
May 30?
yeah.
Okay, sorry. The boss says it's going to be on May 30th at 6:30 p.m. Okay, so that takes care of that. Next, we have the Historic Preservation Commission ordinance. Councilman Zipperich.
Thank you, Mayor. This has been almost a year in its revision. I wanted to thank the Historic Preservation Commission for working tirelessly on this ordinance. The change in the ordinance will help preserve the historic character of the borough by requiring exterior improvements and alterations of properties in the existing Washington Street Historic District, Downtown Historic District, and properties outside of these districts identified in the master plan element for historic preservation. And just a couple of quick bullets. It'll strengthen historic preservation in the borough. It applies to Washington Street Historic District, the Downtown Historic District, historic properties outside these districts that are included in the historic preservation element of the master plan. And it changes the role of the Historic Preservation Commission from a weak form that makes recommendations to a strong form that will continue to review and approve exterior renovations or additions. It updates the ordinance section establishing the Historic Preservation Commission to bring it into conformance with the municipal land use law.
Okay, I think the council has before you revision number 2. You may have gotten a previous draft, and one was amended, I believe, after Councilman Zipperich and I had talked and made some technical changes, and Mr. Carter had reviewed it. And does anybody have any questions on it or issues? Because it's sort of it only involves those 3 areas, namely everything in the Washington Street Historic District, which is already a historic district, which was created in the overlay zone in downtown, which is very limited into that overlay zone, and the historic element of the master plan adopted at the last master plan. And again, questions, or shall we introduce it, then we can have further discussions. So what you have before us is the revised part.
Yeah, Mayor, I just think the most important aspect of this is changing the function of the commission from a weak form from an advisory board to one that actually has say, can dictate whether something goes or doesn't. So I just want to make the public aware that this is actually fundamentally changing the nature of the Historic Commission.
And Mark, I think you raised a very good point, because with former councilperson, Senator Beck. She and I were the ones that introduced the original historic preservation ordinance, which is the weak ordinance. And we thought at that time that it was important to preserve elements of the character of the town, not the entire town. But at the same time, we weren't ready because we didn't have any reference as to whether it could work or not. And so we didn't feel that it was appropriate to introduce something of a broader mandatory scope. And so we've had the old ordinance, the present ordinance in place for a while, but then we've had some review and work with especially the Washington Street Historic District and the extraordinary inventory which the committee and the volunteers have taken. Maybe we should consider moving on. So it's up for discussion, but I think it's a logical outcome of what was started about 12 years ago.
Plus, the council will always be the final arbiter on these things anyway. I mean, we will have to approve things, and it can always be amended as well.
Okay, so how do you want to deal? Do you want to put it on the next agenda or what? Or no, it's on for introduction? Yeah, we still have it on for introduction, but the one that's on for introduction is the amended one, right? Okay, that's fine. So it is on, we'll move it to approval of the minutes for April 25th. Motion? Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Mayoral appointments this evening. There are some appointments which have to be announced. I'm very pleased to announce the appointment of Frederick Porcione as the construction official for the Borough of Red Bank, to be effective immediately. At the same time, Roseanne Delpra to the Historic Preservation Commission as a full member to an unexpired 3-year term expiring 12/31/19. Gary Sapphire to the Historic Preservation Commission as an alternate member, number 2, to expire 12/31/19. And Paul Corrietto, who's also here tonight, to the Animal Welfare Advisory Committee for an unexpired 3-year term expiring 12/31/18. Motion to confirm.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Reports of Mayor and Council Committee members. Eric, why don't you start?
Hey, I just have a few updates from Parks and Rec. We had our second meeting for Kimley Horn last week. There was 2 more public sessions led by the consultants, Kimley Horn. We encourage the residents to check out our Marine Park webpage on the Parks and Rec website on our borough website. There are 2 surveys on there to fill out and provide your input. Please also check the Marine Park info page to fill out these updates, and we'll provide you with another date for the next meeting with Kimley Horn. The Red Bank Classic 5K is scheduled for Saturday, June 16th. Please spread the word and sign up online. Some other upcoming events include the toddler music class this Saturday morning at 10 a.m. here, Memorial Day observance, which is May 28th, and then the arts show on June 2nd. Also, we had the first Red Bank Cars and Coffee in the west side section of the parking lot. It was a little overcast, but it turned out we had a great turnout for classic and unique cars. This gathering will continue to take place on the west part of the White Street parking lot, the 4th Sunday of each month. So the next one will take place on May 27th from 8:30 a.m. to noon. So spread the word and tell everybody to come out and see some cool cars. And finally, the parking study, the parking committee met with the two finalists. We have a very strong candidate, but we're hoping to work in conjunction with River Center. So we're having the candidate that we like the most meet with River Center on May 23rd to talk to them, and hopefully by the next council meeting we'll have a recommendation for a parking consultant to the council.
Yeah, and Eric, I just wanted to add that is being presented to the full board at River Center, not just the executive committee.
Yeah.
Michael.
Thank you, Mayor. And I believe Ed, to your point, Councilman Ziprich, is being presented to the whole board, then I guess that would be a public meeting, right? Public can attend the full River Center meetings, right? I just want to point that out. Quick report, the fire department under Stu Jensen, the new chief, has been doing a great job. They've been implementing a lot of new drills, which I think is really important. You know, preparation is a huge part of the fire department, and that's how you kind of keep a town safe and moving in the right direction. And outside of that, chief, we have nothing on the police, so they're all good. And everyone, I'd like to your point, have a great Mother's Day.
Mark? Thank you, Mayor. I'll be brief. The code committee did meet after our last council meeting. We were working on the initiative that we had announced previously to try to assess the vacancy rates for the upper floors, which Eric and I have talked about will definitely impact the parking study and the results there. So we were working on compiling that data and trying to boil it down. Jim Scalone from River Center was at that meeting as well, so we are also partnering with River Center in that endeavor. I was unable to attend the Environmental Commission meeting this past yesterday, but we will have an announcement at the next meeting.
Thank you. Kathy?
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to mention that the 4th Annual Mayor's Ball will take place on Friday, May 18th from 7 to 11 at the Oyster Point Hotel. Tickets are still available.
It's a masquerade ball this year.
It is. It's called A Night in Disguise Masquerade Ball. And masks will be provided to anyone who doesn't come with a mask. Or I guess you can come in costume too if you wanted to. Barbara's giving me the evil eye over there. She's like, no, I don't. Tickets are still available. You can purchase them online at www.redbankmayorsball.com. So we hope that everybody has bought their tickets or will be buying them. It will be a very fun night, and Tim McClune and the Shirleys will be performing. With regard to the Eisner Library, on June 2nd at 11, the last Eisner History Walking Tour of Red Bank will take place for the spring. It'll be 45 minutes, but prior to that at 10, there is a program titled The Eisners of Red Bank. So it's a double feature. At 10 a.m. at the library, you can hear Eisners of Red Bank, which will be presented by Liam Collins, who's a local resident, and he volunteers at the library. Registration for the walking tour is recommended, but if you can't, everyone is welcome, so please turn up and enjoy a walking tour. And one last thing is that our library director will be retiring at the end of June, and so we want to thank her for all of her hard work and turning things around, and we'll miss you, but I know you'll be back. She's going to enjoy some traveling for a while, and just wanted to thank you, Elizabeth, for everything.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Elizabeth. You stepped up to the plate when things were really sketchy over at the library, and we wouldn't be where we are today without your leadership. So thank you for all that you've done for all of us here at Red Bank. The Historic Preservation Commission met last week to review plans, nominate new members, and update website content, as well as finalize the historic ordinance after attorney review. Again, I can't thank Michaela Faragine and the entire Historic Preservation team enough, along with Glenn Carter, who has been instrumental in helping us comb through almost every letter on the page. His support has been invaluable. The DPW committee met last Wednesday to review with the supervisor and engineer the road program schedule changes to brush pickups, updates on the well, the meter projects. We've gotten the number of meters installed. That number keeps getting smaller week by week. We also discussed a master plan project for our parks and reviewed capital projects. I wanted to compliment Eric Yingstrom and Charlie and the Kimley Horn team on the Marine Park project. Part 2 last week at the Senior Center. It was pretty amazing data presentation on what they had gathered from the first round, and we look forward to working with all of them on the next round coming up. And then lastly, Councilwoman Horgan and I attended the Elks Youth Day breakfast where we congratulated the scholarship and essay winners. And we also represented the borough at the Monmouth County 68th Cotillion in Long Branch on the same day.
Thank you. Michael?
Want to read it again?
No.
No report.
Thank you. Just one other matter. As just got a letter from our wonderful postal carriers, from the New Jersey Association of Letter Carriers, our local Red Bank branch, and something frankly that I didn't know that they did, but they asked me to announce, and I'm so proud of them, that on Saturday, May 12th, 2018, evidently our postal carriers will be participating in what is known as the National Association of Letter Carriers Stamp Out Hunger Day. And evidently all postal carriers throughout the whole country on that day collect foodstuffs from their customers, our neighbors, and over the past years they basically have collected 70 million pounds of food on that day. And throughout the whole period that they've been doing this, they've collected 1.4 billion pounds of food for their program, the Stamp Out Hunger Food Drive, which is going to be on May 12th, a Saturday in Red Bank. And so your postal carrier will be collecting it. Locally, what they will do is that they already have partnership arrangements for local institutions. The United Way, the Salvation Army, Catholic Charities, the National Guard, the American Legion, and Veterans of Far More, as well as the Rotary Club and AARP. So they will, as soon as they collect it, they will distribute it to those stakeholders locally. So
You can leave a bag of food on your front porch or whatever. That's usually how you do it.
Mr. Fallon, you could be excused. I didn't know you were waiting for my imprimatur. You have family, don't you? And if you don't, you can make new friends, yeah.
Good night, Joe.
Okay. Reports of mayor and council committee members. We did that. Then no further reports, right? Communications and petitions recommended for approval by the Special Events Committee. They are as follows. Request from St. Anthony to hold the annual St. Anthony's Day procession from Peters Place to Chestnut Street at 11 o'clock on Saturday, June 16th to Herbert Street from 8 to 4, and actually Herbert Street's going to be closed from 8 to 4. Request from the Indie Street Film Festival to install a mural at 97 Broad Street on July 13th through the 15th. Request from Indie Film Festival to hold a cookout at Bowtie Cinemas on Thursday the 26th of July and Friday the 27th. Request from Red Bank Charter School to hold their annual welcome picnic at Eastside Park on August 29th, and request from the Life Fest Inside to hold their annual worldwide Dance for Kindness on Broad Street on November 11th, to close Broad Street from White Street to Front Street from 1 to 3 p.m. And request from Brothers Brandt Foundation to hold the annual Rivalry Series flag football games and to use the Count Basie Field on November 23rd from 9 to 4. Motion? Second? All in favor? Any opposed? There's further a request from Joshua Smith, Robert Colmorgan, Stephen George, Robert Heyer, James Bruno, Leonard Calabro, Peter DeFazio, John Mago, and Diane Weiserzak to transfer membership to the Westside Host Company of the Red Bank Volunteer Fire Department. Just for people who don't know, that is not a defection. It's not a merger or a takeover. We have been successful in working with our various companies to realign the companies, and by statute they have to join another company, since we went from 6 companies to a reduction of 1, so we're now down to 5, and so this is the transfer. Commissioner Webb.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay.
Mayor, can I make a 2-second comment about
Please,
that?
you can do it.
As Mayor just briefly explained, some of the members from Relief belong to the West Side Hose, and A lot of those members were at that firehouse for decades. Their families have been there. Some of the families were 3 or 4 decades at Relief. I know how difficult a decision that was to be able to do that. We appreciate that from the bottom of our hearts that we were able to come together, come to an agreement that was a win-win for the borough and for the consolidation, the future of the Red Bank Fire Department. So I just want to thank those individual members who decided to transfer over their service to the West Side Hose, and we really, really appreciate that, and we look forward to your continued service to the department.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right, before we go on to the, first of all, there are no ordinances for public hearing and final adoption. This evening, we have a number of ordinances that are only on for introduction. So the way it works is that ordinances that are on for introduction normally do not have a public hearing, but I know that there's probably going to be a lot of public interest in some of them. So we have in the past afforded individuals an opportunity to comment, not on the actual introduction of that ordinance, but since it is on the agenda, people should be afforded the opportunity to so comment on things that are on the agenda. The normal rule of thumb, which we will enforce, is that because of time limitations and duplicitous in terms of comments, there will be a 3-minute time frame for each particular comment. The public comment is basically the opportunity for the public comment to be able to express what is on their mind. It is not really a debate scenario because that eats up into the public's comments. So it'll be 3 minutes of individuals' opportunity to express their opinion on an issue, and to thereafter we're going to have to ask you to wrap it up. Now, because if it gets to the situation where there should be some lead comment, we would probably afford one individual from either pro or the opposite side of a particular issue more than 3 minutes, like 5 minutes, and to sort of wrap it up. But it is not an opportunity where you ask for consensus or debate. So just limit your comments, identify your name and your residence, and we will be happy to entertain individuals on anything on the public agenda. So having said that, are there any individuals who have any comments regarding any resolutions or ordinances that are on for public discussion this evening? If so, now's the time to come up. Yes. Please take the microphone, identify your name and your address, and because we're on the record. And
sure. Allison Gregory, 109 Bank Street. Just 2 things. I don't know if this
139 Main Street.
109 Bank Street.
Oh, Bank Street. I'm
yeah.
sorry. My apologies.
Sorry. 2 things. I think the announcement you made about the Postal Service, fantastic. How would the homeowners know about this?
We're going to put it on the website.
Okay. But other than that, I mean, I think it's a fantastic opportunity for homeowners to.
Yeah, it's really run. Yeah, it's really run by the post office, but we will be happy. They just sent me a letter. We'll put it on the website. We'll get the information out.
Okay. And then the other question I had is, I know that there's been a lot of discussion about Marine Park. I know there was also a proposal in the past about Sunset Park. Is that still something that
that's not on the agenda? We'll be happy to hear from you.
Okay.
But there's a part at the end where we can talk about that.
Okay.
So this is just for anything that's already on the printed agenda.
Okay.
Okay, but save that thought. We'll be happy to bring it up.
Okay.
Anybody else? No? Okay. Motion to close? Second? All in favor? Any opposed? All right, so let's move on to ordinance 2018-14, an ordinance establishing salaries of wages and officials and employees of the Borough of Red Bank. Motion to introduce. Second? Roll call.
Councilman Taylor?
Yes.
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilman Yingstrom?
Yes.
Councilman Ballard?
Yes.
Councilman Zipperich?
Yes.
Councilwoman Horgan? Yes.
The public hearing will be on May 30th, 2018 at 6:30 p.m. Ordinance 2018-15, an ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 490 of the Planning and Development Regulations regarding the Historic District Regulations and Article 8 regarding the Historic Preservation Commission. And this is also subject to our Planning Board review. Motion to introduce. Second. Roll call.
Councilman Taylor?
Yes.
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilman Yingstrom?
Yes.
Councilman Ballard?
Yes.
Councilman Zipperich?
Yes.
Councilwoman Horgan? Yes.
Public hearing will be on May 30th, 2018 at 6:30 p.m. Ordinance 2018-16, an ordinance amending the Borough Code, Chapter 231 concerning animals to include new Article 8 regulations regulating the sale of dogs and cats and prohibiting the sale of certain dogs and cats from the pet shops. Motion to introduce.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Taylor?
No.
Councilman Whalen?
After talking to our attorney Greg, I have to abstain from the vote.
Councilman Yingstrom?
Yes.
Councilman Ballard?
Yes.
Councilman Zipperich?
Yes.
Councilwoman Horgan? Yes.
Okay, the public hearing will be on May 30th, 2018 at 6:30 p.m. Ordinance 2018-17, an ordinance amending and I'm sorry? Yeah, I know, that's what I'm saying. Ordinance 2018-17, which is what was tabled at earlier in the meeting, so there was a motion to table, and that is in fact tabled, so there's no discussion on that. Public hearing and final adoption on ordinances, there are none. Resolution 18-127, authorizing and amending the agreement with Interfaith Neighbors for the Red Bank Senior Center. Motion.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Resolution 18-128, authorizing approval of sidewalk cafes. Motion. Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Resolution 18-129, accepting performance bids for Two River Theater pursuant to the recommendation of the engineer. Motion. Second.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Resolution 18-130, appointing special law enforcement officers class 1. Motion.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Resolution 18-131, approving the closeout change order and final payment for L&L Paving Company for the Red Bank Road Program pursuant to recommendation of the engineer. Motion. Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Resolution 18-132, awarding a 2-year concession license with an optional 3-year extension to Genesis Point LLC for concession premises at Riverside Gardens Park pursuant to a bid received. Motion. Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Resolution 18-133, a resolution amending the 2018 temporary appropriations. Motion. Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Proclamations we did, payment of vouchers, resolution 18-134, be it resolved by the mayor and council, the bills be paid on the attached check registry totaling $904,247.31. Motion. Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Old business. Any new business? Audience. Members of the audience. Anybody?
Mayor, I just have one.
Come on up.
Is there a microphone?
Yeah.
Mayor, I had already addressed.
Name and address.
Karen Fasano Thompson, I'm a local attorney here in Red Bank, 40 Elston Court, Red Bank. I am also a member of the Red Bank Animal Advisory Welfare Committee, and since this is not my public comment, I did not stand during the public comment, but we do have copies for the council members and the mayor of roughly 250 letters of support with respect to the proposed ordinance on the puppy mills that I would like for the council to have. All council members have received these documents via email today, but I did want to at least produce, we have 5 hard copies. Environmental Commission will be happy that we didn't produce 7 or 8. So if I could just simply, if I could simply approach and give copies to council, that'd be great.
And
Thank
the
you.
custodian of that will be obviously be the clerk.
I just can't carry all of them. I had children with me, so. There is an original, Mayor. It
Thank
is
you.
marked. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Matty Giuliano. I am the chaplain of the Monmouth County SPCA. And on behalf of the Monmouth County SPCA, who adamantly supports the passage of the ordinance which you introduced this evening, I would like to thank this council for voting for its introduction. As I stated the last time that we were all here discussing this matter, St. Francis of Assisi was very clear when it came to the care of all of God's creation. That being not to hurt our humble brethren is our first duty to them, but to stop there is not enough. We have a higher mission to be of service to them whenever they require it. And I believe that the introduction of this ordinance, and God willing, the passage of this ordinance on May 30th, will in fact accomplish just that. So on behalf of the Monmouth County SPCA, I would like to thank you for following in the footsteps of the Monmouth County freeholders who already adopted this ordinance and suggested its passage throughout all of the county. I would like to offer you my thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Goodman. Anybody else? Ma'am, come on up.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Nancy Jenkins. I'm a Monmouth County resident. I live in,
We
I live
can't
in
pick up.
Morganville on Route 7940.
I'm sorry, she needs your name. She did.
Nancy Jenkins.
Jenkins? Thank you.
Yes. So I may not be a Red Bank resident,
okay, you're
but
welcome.
that's okay. I'm a Red Bank alcoholic. I swear to God. Okay. I'm a Red Bank alcoholic.
We didn't hear that. The chief didn't hear
I know.
that.
It's like it's an addiction. Okay. If you're not at Bonacera, you're over at the chocolate shops. Everybody goes to Red Bank. It's just a fact. Okay. I send the kids there. But I'm also an animal advocate, so I apologize. I only have 5 copies here, but I wanted to leave you with this tonight. I also want to thank you for supporting this ordinance and following some of the townships. I want to introduce you to a little girl named Avery, and Avery came from a puppy mill. And when you support this bill, you're supporting saving animals like Avery. I had her. You know, there's pictures in here. You can see where she was opened up with mammary tumors. Half of her was hanging out. She came from a puppy mill. And these puppy stores, they support it. I, 20 years ago, walked into a puppy store, okay? I bought that puppy in the window. I didn't know. 10 years ago, I got in the rescue, and you just can't look back. So I'd like you to leave you with Avery this evening. And just
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that truly was a Red Bank alcoholic, not Red Bank alcoholic.
You're always welcome.
Mr. Mayor, may I'd like to submit my written statement to the clerk. May I?
Yeah, she'll just take it. We'll put it.
Okay.
Miss Gary, you wanted to come up.
Gary Hager of West Front Street, owner of Park Avenue Puppies. The business that this particular bill will put out, along with 7 employees. I just really want to kind of start with that to make you understand that. I'm going to start with that the council is proceeding down a precarious path. Just by bringing up the ordinance, my reputation in this town has been injured. There was a commitment made by the council, and everybody in Red Bank should know this, okay? I don't care whether you're activists or non-activists. There was a commitment made by the council to sit down and talk with the stakeholders. Not once, but 3 times. Mayor Mena and Mrs. Horgan visited my shop personally and reconfirmed the desire to not institute an ordinance which would close my business. They were after puppy mills, understood, and put 7 employees out of work. And put up another empty storefront on the corner, NT of Broad and Front. To this date, there has been no meeting, no contact, not one phone call returned. So what does it come to when the council basically gets PETA in here and says that you should have, everybody should eat vegan, or there should be no meat, or we're going to start determining where someone can provide their wares from? Whoever's thinking about opening a business in Red Bank, you better rethink it, because they could be coming for you next. It's a slippery slope when people basically want to tell citizens what they can and can't do. I really thought we were in a democracy. So the Red Bank citizens should really be horrified that the council, they elected and are attempting to ram through an ordinance without any discourse, as well as any other shop that is doing business or seeks to do business in the borough. So I'm going on record right now that if this bill is passed in current form, I will have no other option but to authorize my attorneys to sue the borough. Guaranteed it will be done. I'm telling you, I'm committing to every single one of you right now that has not been willing to sit down and discuss this bill. Councilman Ziprich, Councilman Horgan, Councilman Cannon, Mayor Mena. And I can't read your name, but I'll include you when I can. Well, the activist friends will tell you that it has withstood legal challenges in other jurisdictions. It has not truly been challenged in the state of New Jersey. After hearing the budget challenges the borough was facing earlier tonight, I must ask, how much of our taxpayer dollars are you willing to spend to defend this unconstitutional ordinance? I'm willing to spend a lot, because I have right on my side. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Brian Hackett. I'm the New Jersey State Director with the Humane Society of the United States, 700 Professional Drive, Gaithersburg, Maryland. I am a resident of New Jersey. I just want to address 2 points. This is perhaps one of the most pro-business ordinances you may ever pass, and let me explain very briefly why. 24 out of the 25 largest pet retailers in this country refuse to sell cats and dogs. The one of those 25 that does continue to sell cats and dogs is most recently responsible for a multi-state bacterial infection outbreak that the CDC attributed to the animals that were sourced from commercial breeding facilities, what we call puppy mills. There's a reason that our state used to have 45 plus pet stores that sold cats and dogs for profit, retail. It's been cut in half. That's not because of animal activists, it's not because of any other reason other than they've either had health problems and they were shut down by the municipalities, or they closed voluntarily because their business was suffering, because it's really a dying business model to sell cats and dogs for profit. It's a fact. People learn about the source of these animals. People don't want to be a part of it. The pet industry is going the opposite direction. It's a $69 billion industry. All sectors of that industry is increasing in profits except live pet sales. There's a reason for that. 120 New Jersey municipalities have passed this ordinance, including plus hundreds of others nationwide. 2 states, California and the pro-business Republican governor of Maryland, just last week signed a statewide retail cat and dog ban bill into law in Maryland. Pro-business Republicans, Democrats, liberals, and conservatives are passing these things like wildfire because it's pro-business. And let me tell you something. Pet stores that source from puppy mills take away business from our state's many responsible breeders. We're talking about a pet industry where we, of course, from HSUS's standpoint, support rescue and shelter pets adoption first, but we also encourage people who choose not to do that to go seek a responsible breeder. The New Jersey Federation of Dog Clubs, on its own website, encourages its members and the public to never buy a pet from a pet store or over the internet. They have 80 dog clubs, a part of the New Jersey Federation of Dog Clubs. Our residents can go seek a responsible breeder. So this is pro-business, and legally 6 federal courts have upheld its constitutionality in multiple jurisdictions, and there's never been a constitutional challenge of this type of ordinance on a constitutional grounds in the state of New Jersey. Also, there are 7 pet stores that have a humane model of sourcing pets from shelters and rescues, and they're doing just fine in the state of New Jersey. So any pet business that goes out of business is not because of animal activists or these types of ordinances, it's because the public doesn't agree with the inhumane business model of sourcing from commercial breeders. So that said, I thank you for introducing this. I personally love Red Bank. I have relatives that work in the school district. My nephew was born here. Of the 150 member families of HSUS that live here, I thank you very much.
Knowles. I'm the owner of Ferry-Ulysses in White House Station, New Jersey. My business is thriving, as every pet store owner's business is thriving. People want their puppies. They come to us for their puppies. So they can say all they want that it's a dying business. I can't keep up with the demand. Just before I came down here, I had 3 customers fighting over 1 puppy. So don't tell me that it's a dying business, because it's not. People want their puppies. And if they can't get it from a regulated source, guess what? They're going to go to Craigslist. They're going to go underground. And then you're going to have a real problem on your hands. Because you take all the regulation away, that's what's going to happen. I want to address just a few things. These pictures right here, this is a shelter rescue. Maybe you can just pass those around. In Princeton, New Jersey. They act like just because they're a rescue or a shelter, that they're wonderful. Look at these deplorable conditions here. Can you compare and contrast that to some of our breeder pictures? Here's the North Shore Animal League. It's big business. These rescues are going out now and buying puppies from the same breeders they disparaged. It's big business. It's called retail rescue. Why is the North Shore Animal League advertising for puppies? Why don't they want us in business? Because we're competition. We're competition. Look at this. North Shore Animal League. Bring your puppies. We need puppies. When did a shelter become a retail business? What is going on here? Weren't they put on this earth to take puppies in or take dogs in that were out on the street? We're competition. That's why they want us out of business. I want to address a couple of things that these activists go after us in this room. They say that there's not enough regulation in the state of New Jersey. There's a lot of regulation in the state of New Jersey. We have the strictest regulations in the country. They say that we were against the regulation. The regulations at the state are working. They're working because bad apples have been put out of business. So for them to say that the regulations and the Pet Purchase Protection Act is not working, my business is thriving. I'm in business. I get inspected. We have growth month after month, year after year. They say that there are not enough inspectors coming into New Jersey. Yes, there are. The Consumer Affairs is inspecting. Her name is Donna Leslie, and there are others. These people behind me, they make bogus complaints. They go to Consumer Affairs, they make a complaint. Jeff had a Consumer Affairs inspector come into a store recently. She took one look around. There was nothing wrong in the shop. She closed the case. This is what they spend their time doing, harassing us. They say that we can't be compliant with state law because the USDA took the inspection reports down. Really? The USDA took the inspection reports down.
Okay.
They have nobody?
Can I just ask a clarification for a second?
Yes.
Gary, is your attorney going to speak?
Not tonight.
Oh, okay.
Not on first
So you have no problem with letting her
Not at all.
put a longer period? Okay.
Okay.
Now, no, I said one person from each.
Yeah.
So Mr. Hackett had more than
Yes.
3 minutes and she'll have.
The
more.
USDA took them down. They should only blame themselves. Why did the USDA take the inspection reports down? Because it was people like them harassing the breeders. So they took and they covered up their privacy. They redacted everything. And they say we can't stay compliant. In my hand is an example of 2 big binders that are in my shop of clean, compliant inspection reports. Do you see any redaction on there? There's no redaction. We can get the inspection reports. We have the inspection reports. We can stay compliant. Just because they can't get them, they should only blame themselves. They should only blame themselves for the USDA taking them down. 2 huge binders. Here's 2018, 2017, 2016. No redaction. They say that the breeders are irresponsible. Well, irresponsible breeders are going to have sick dogs, right? Sick dogs are going to breed sick puppies, correct? All the breeders out there are irresponsible. There's no good breeders. Do you know what would happen if I was continually bringing in and selling sick puppies? I wouldn't be growing at the rate I am. I'm growing month after month, year after year. We're thriving. We're thriving. So you can't tell me that these breeders are so irresponsible if I have such demand for my puppies. They're beautiful puppies. Like I said, just before I came here, I had 3 customers wanting 1 puppy that I have in the store. They say that, that there's all these complaints going on about our shops. Where are all the complaints? You know what I want to point out?
First of all,
go ahead.
We're not complaining about your shop.
Well, but this is what they're saying. They're saying that there's all these horrible...
there was no testimony that I heard about anything. The other thing is you're going on to 6 minutes, so wrap it up in 30
all right,
seconds.
well, I'll wrap it up. All I can say is that this is a lot of untruths and lies. Come into our shops, see what we do. Visit Gary, he's invited you in. Why aren't you taking him up on it? Let him show you what he does. And as far as a USDA inspection, here's the animal care. This is what a USDA breeder has to go through, inspection. Here's a resource book by the USDA. This is what the breeders have in their hands. The USDA has systems in place, and the breeders have systems in place to comply with these inspections.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, my name is Jenna Quinn, and I'm just a regular New Jersey citizen here. I went to college in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, where I became involved with a group called United Against Puppy Mills.
Your address, please.
163 Route 70, Medford. A group called United Against Puppy Mills, and also a Tattletale Puppy Mill Rescue. This week, I will take in an 8-year-old poodle who couldn't come directly to me because the medical case is so insane. It will stay at a vet's office for an entire week, and that's likely the mother of one of the puppies in these pet shops.
No, because
so I'm not gonna acknowledge that. I'm just a regular citizen here. I'm not a vegan. I'm not an activist to say. I take these dogs because I can and because I want to, and I really hope that you pass this because I've seen it. I've gone to the farms. I've talked to the farmers who have these dogs, and all I can go on is what I've seen. No, I haven't been to the shops. I'm sure they look fine. If you drive up to the farms, they also look fine. It's what's going on behind those barn doors. That's what you need to watch out for. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Mr. Heck.
Stephen Heck, 135 Branch Avenue. I too am just a regular guy. I do not own dogs, but I like dogs. My grandchildren have dogs. My question to you, Mr. Mayor, and the council is, my understanding is that the county and the state have regulations. Why are we now, when we're dealing with tax issues and other kinds of issues, important quality of life issues for residents and business people, why are we now introducing this kind of ordinance that applies to one business and probably no more after that? Why are we doing this? I'd like to hear what the vision is for this ordinance. Thank you.
Good. Anybody else?
Janice Fisher, Manasquan, New Jersey. I want to begin with the fact that I have, for over 30 years, regularly frequented Red Bank, dining, shopping, attending the theater. So I love Red Bank. It's a progressive, really cool, short town. And we thank you for introducing the ordinance tonight. We certainly hope that it will be adopted and you'll join the other animal-friendly communities in New Jersey. I want to address just a couple things because obviously at the second reading I'll be providing more information, but the Pet Purchase Protection Act is in fact a state law that regulates pet stores. The pet store industry will lead you to believe that it's the most stringent law in the country. What I want to tell you is that it is not being enforced. It was enforced for one thing, and that was posting requirements. Did the pet shops put their breeder information and inspection reports in their store so that their customers would be able to make an educated purchase? They did not. The pet store industry would like you to think that we filed bogus complaints. But as a result of our complaints and the complaints of customers, 26 out of 29 pet stores were fined by the New Jersey Division of Consumer Affairs. That's only one aspect of the law. The second aspect, sourcing of puppies, regulating where do these puppies come from, falls under the state's jurisdiction. They are not enforcing that. And any pet store that says that they have been visited by the New Jersey Division of Consumer Affairs on a regular basis to find out whether or not they're sourcing from breeders with prohibited violations is not telling the truth. Our research, the research of the Humane Society of the United States, has proven beyond a shadow of a doubt, which we've provided the council, that breeder inspection reports from the USDA showed that these pet stores were buying puppies from breeders with prohibited violations, according to New Jersey law, and violations that would make their pet store customers cringe if they knew the truth. We'll be showing video. I think we've gotten the okay to do that for a breeder, for one of the pet store owners, which will prove to you, hopefully, it should be riveting, to show you that this is not what they're making it out to be, all rosy. So I just want to make that clear. We have a law, but the law is not being enforced. I talk to Consumer Affairs. I have a good relationship with them. They have, by their own admission, said we can't get out to these pet stores to do what we are supposed to do. So these ordinances are very, very important, and I thank you tonight for introducing this ordinance.
Thank you. James.
Hi, Jim Scavone, Executive Director for Red Bank River Center. I'm not speaking specifically to the ordinance about the sale of dogs and cats. I would just like to make a more general statement. Over the past, I don't know, 5 or 6 months, I've had conversations with most of you on the council about changing the perceptions of Red Bank in terms of the perception that Red Bank is not business friendly, and the issues that we have faced over the past many years of fighting that perception. And those have been great conversations, and over the past 5 or 6 months, we have made some real headway, I think, in partnering between River Center and the borough on many very positive steps. My concern is that tonight on the agenda there have been introduced several ordinances that could be considered business unfriendly. And those introduction of those ordinances, along with actions over the past month or so toward commercial property owners and the reverse tax appeals, and other ordinances that have been introduced, are a concern, because I feel like those conversations that we've had in recent history are taking a turn. And the best thing that we can do to change the perception that Red Bank is not business friendly is to change the overregulation and the way that we do business in Red Bank. So while I don't have a opinion one way or another about the ordinances that were introduced tonight, or while I'm not expressing tonight an opinion one way or the other about the ordinances that were introduced, I would just like to caution the council members to be very careful of overregulation of the business community, because I think all that does in the end is continue that reality that Red Bank is not open for business or for development. Thank you.
Jim, can I ask you a question? In your statement, you said ordinances plural, as in more than one. I assume you're referring, one of the ordinances would be the the puppy mill ban, what is the second one you're referring to?
Again,
Just in case you...
no, I don't.
Oh, in case you didn't recall.
And again, I want to caution that I'm not necessarily disagreeing with the garbage collection times. That might be a very valid ordinance, but again, it's regulation on business collection. We, you know, the borough requires restaurants to have their garbage hauled by private collectors, and now on top of that, we're adding a regulation as to when they can do that. And again, I think we can have the discussion as to whether that's a valid ordinance. I don't necessarily disagree with it, but it is a regulation on businesses. And in the historic preservation ordinance, there are some real concerns about the regulations that will be placed on the businesses or the properties within the historic district. River Center for years has had design guidelines, many of which are referred to in some of the borough's ordinances. And there seem to be some, so I can't think of the word, sorry, disagreement with some of the design guidelines that are being proposed in the historic preservation ordinance.
So three, those are three?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
On the second, I have to say, Jim, and I appreciate your comments, that on the commercial garbage collection, that is a pro-business ordinance, and I'll tell you why. Because under the existing aegis of the ordinance, if there's a noise violation, the property owner or the business gets the summons. Right. In this case, it's the hauler who can collect that garbage at more convenient times. So it actually protects the business, and frankly, it came about as a result of 3 or 4 calls that I've gotten from business owners saying, we don't have any control over our haulers, can you help us? So it's actually pro-business.
Right, and I appreciate that. And that goes to my statement that I'm not necessarily disagreeing with the specific ordinances. I just, again, a caution that we're heading down a road to over-regulation.
Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Rosemary Smith, excuse me, and I live in Middletown, and I am just a citizen. I am a person who has loved animals all of my life, and everything that I've heard from everyone has to do with business in Red Bank. Well, it happens that puppy stores do business on the backs of mother and father dogs that languish in puppy mills. So that's what we need to take into consideration. We're not talking about a pizza parlor. We're not talking about any other type of business that doesn't run on the backs and suffering and languishing of dogs. So that's the only point I want to make, because if somebody can give me a reason why we should continue to allow dogs to suffer, so you can be in business, find another business, because cruelty is wrong on any count when it comes to cruelty to animals. That's all I need to
say. Good evening, Jean Clayton. I'm representing New Jersey residents against puppy mills. I live in Marlton, New Jersey. I'm going to keep things short because I know the next meeting will probably be big. But I just wanted to comment on a few things that Ms. Knowles said from Furrylicious. In 2015, which is the one and only year, we could get inspection reports from the USDA, and breeders and the stores had to present their breeders. Ms. Knowles had 39 breeders total of those, 22 had violations. And of the 22, 14 had more violations than state laws allow. I think she gave you a...
She didn't interrupt you. You're not going to interrupt her.
I think, I'm sorry, I only have this one copy. I think she gave you a copy of this with the blue booties, a store she goes to. This is the real, I don't know if you want to pass this around, and I'll also give you these while I'm talking, because I'm going to move right on to Mr. Hager. These are just a few things. This is where Miss Knowles, the top pictures with Miss Knowles says she goes to look at puppies. This bottom one is where they really come from. I'm going to move on to Mr. Hager. He bought from this breeder. And again, it's just a satellite shop. They act like they go to these breeders, pick a few puppies. They're all sweet, wear booties to go around. This is the kind of place they go to. Mr. Hager has on his website that he is 100% committed to eliminating substandard breeding operations, and he regularly schedules visits to the handful of breeders he buys from. That page, the one I just gave you, that there's one for everyone, that's the kind of breeder he buys from. We just received his report from your clerk in Red Bank for his breeders list for 2017. On that list, there's 14 breeders that he did not report. And I can tell you that we have the CVIs from every state for breeders that were sent here. That's a certificate of veterinary inspection that any dog leaving a state coming into New Jersey, one of these has to come with the dog. It says that a vet inspected them and the dog is free of disease. We got these CVIs from states, not all of them, some of them are too expensive to get. And there's 14 sheets here, 14 breeders that he did not report on his sheet that he is obliged to send to the clerk of your town every year. So why is he hiding these breeders? This top one is Similar Kennels. I think we're going to show a video next week on that, which is full of regulations. He again in 2016, 2015 did not report all of his breeders.
Could you try to wrap it up?
Yeah, okay. I just want. These are the breeders he didn't report last year, inspection reports. I'm going to get a copy to you of all of this stuff so you can look at it.
You can email it to the clerk.
Yeah, I'll do that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? From the back, yes. Ms. Oh, I'm sorry. Sir, you're from the back also.
Hi, council members. My name is Jeff Morton. I'm the owner of Shaker Paw Pet Stores here in New Jersey. I've testified before you guys back in November when you had introduced the bill before, and we really tried our best to convince you about the truths of our side of the business and the mistruths that the animal activists provide. I want to start 36 months ago. Mr. Hager, who was in the financial services industry, decided he wanted to buy a business, a family business, and he invested about $300,000 here in the city of Red Bank to purchase his store that had been in the town for many, many years.
I'm sorry, you said he purchased the store?
He purchased the store.
Isn't he leasing it?
I don't know if
he purchased the building,
the business. The business.
The business, okay, yeah.
Okay, so he invested approximately $300,000 in this town. He comes to the town, he says, hey, I bought this new business, I need a license, I need to go through the paperwork. He does that all. 28 months later, this town decides they want to pass an ordinance to put him out of business. What happens to his investment? What about his damages that he's going to incur and has incurred from this town council passing an ordinance that will put him out of business. It'll put him out of business. It will put his employees out of business. It's my view that this is really just it's a targeted ordinance at one guy in one business. Your town, the town of Red Bank, your health department can walk in at any time and go inspect them. Your local Division of Consumer Affairs on the county level can walk in at any time. The activists say, we're not inspected. I'm inspected all the time. My health department comes in, my county comes in, my state comes in. Do they have that knowledge? They do not. But I'm inspected all the time. And they like to stand there and say, oh, there's no enforcement going on. There's plenty of enforcement going on. Gary submitted a list of breeders to you. So in the first preamble of your ordinance, it states, commercial breeding facilities where the health and welfare of the animals are not adequately provided for. So since he had given you these 60 or so breeders, and which breeders are we speaking about that you need to safeguard the residents from? I would hope that you would take the time to review those. The animal activist just said, we pulled all the records from Missouri and Iowa. Just because a puppy is on a bill of lading in Iowa doesn't mean it's going to make it to the store. So it's smoke and mirrors. It's bait and switch. It's simply not true. And this ordinance also says that Gary can't buy from breeders, so there'll be no more lists, but he can only buy from shelters or rescues. So where is that? It looks fine on a bill. Tell me where he's going to go next May to get his dog. To the Monmouth County SPCA? Nope. They don't share their dogs. Should they go to the Newark Humane Society? They don't really share their dogs. So if you're going to pass a law that says, go get your dogs here, we're going to change the distribution model. We're going to turn a shelter, we're going to turn a rescue into a distributor. And that's also a licensing problem. But you've got to resolve that problem. You can't just say, go to a rescue, tell me where to go. Tell me where this fine rescue is that has adoptable dogs that I can still maintain my company with. And just on a final note, I thought that the fines that you were looking to impose on Mr. Hager, $2,000 a maximum for a single infraction, $2,000? I mean, that's a month's salary for many people. That's borders on outrageous, I would say personally. So, thank you very much for your time. I look forward to testifying before you.
Thank you.
Next time.
Anybody else?
Good evening. My name is Ellen Coyote from Hamilton, New Jersey. Thank you for letting me talk tonight. I'm a New Jersey State Certified Animal Cruelty Investigator, and I've been involved in animal protection, shelter, and rescue for 41 years. I want to thank you for introducing this ordinance, because as the saying goes, all it takes for evil to exist is for good people to do nothing. We can support businesses, but please don't support cruelty. The 300 pages or so that's in the USDA regulations, it comes down to a few points that it's the minimal standards, and the USDA admits it's not a seal of approval. They're survival standards. The dogs live about 4 years and in concentration camp conditions. All you have to do, this book just came out this year, 2018. You don't have to do 30 years of research like I did and follow this horrible industry. Read this book, The Doggy in the Window by Rory Christ. I'd just like to say too that I saw on the January tape that it kept being said that puppy mills are illegal. They're not allowed to be imported into New Jersey. That is not true. I took from the Division of Consumer Affairs website the Pet Protection Act in summary and in longer form. Nowhere does it say you cannot buy from a puppy mill. They're also referred to as commercial breeding operations. It's the conditions these animals are kept in. They can be kept in very small cages for their whole lives. It's not required grooming, not required exercises. And there are usually 100 to 1,000 dogs in these facilities. I'd just like to say, last year I helped take care of 400 rescued puppy mill dogs. There was 18 volunteers here for 10-hour shifts with an hour break in between. Just think about this. Just one of you, can you take care of 50 dogs properly? I don't think so. The state of Pennsylvania even didn't want to make the maximum amount of dogs for the millers to have is 50 because they said it wasn't economically viable. The average stores would say 250 to 400 dogs. There's no way you can humanely take care of these dogs and clean up after them every day and feed them and check that they're okay. Please don't support cruelty. Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Councilwoman Burnham.
Last one. Good evening. Cindy Burnham, 71 Wallace. I was just wondering why Councilman Whalen abstained from the vote of introduction. Can you tell us why?
The old owners of Bark County Puppies years ago, my agency does such a small insurance policy for it, and it ends up being that my agency does a policy, and I don't want any conflict, obviously.
Thank you.
Anybody else, sir?
No personal issues.
That was the last time.
My name is Larry Cohen. I live in Fanwood, New Jersey, but I'm a volunteer county legislative leader for the Humane Society of the United States. That's why I'm here.
I'm sorry, what was your last name, sir?
Cohen, C-O-H-E-N.
Yes, thank you.
You've obviously been bombarded with a lot of contradictory information. I'm sure it will continue at the next meeting, and it's your job, obviously, to sort it all out. I just wanted to urge you at some point in your deliberations to allow common sense to come into play. Let me explain what I mean. Reasonable people on both sides, I think almost everybody in this room will agree that puppy mills exist and that they are a problem. This ordinance has been passed in hundreds of small towns, medium towns, large cities, and in 2 states across the country. I've read countless accounts of those proceedings and deliberations, watched videos of them, and in not one place did one pet store ever admit to buying a puppy from a puppy mill. Never. Not in Boston or Chicago or Pittsburgh or Philadelphia or California or Maryland, the 2 states that have passed this. Not in one of the 120 towns in New Jersey has a pet store ever admitted that they have sourced a dog from a puppy mill. But puppy mills exist, we know that, and they are a problem. So this begs 2 common sense questions that I implore you to ask yourselves. 1, where are all those puppies going? And 2, if no store ever buys a puppy from a puppy mill, why have these hundreds of towns and cities and states taken up so much time and spent so much of their resources to pass these ordinances? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Violet Savage, and I live at 51 Spring Street in Red Bank. As the chair of the Red Bank Animal Welfare Advisory Committee, my comment is on the puppy mill ordinance. And I would just like to say that due to the fact that the USDA has stopped the puppy mill inspections, the industry is now unregulated. For this reason, we see this as a serious animal welfare and consumer protection issue. The Red Bank Animal Welfare Advisory Committee is unanimously in support of this ordinance. Thank you.
Anybody else? On any other issue? Anybody else? You had a question, you had a phone.
Thank you. So I know there's been recent discussion and meetings on the Marine Park.
Your name again for the record.
Allison Gregory, 109 Bank Street.
Thank you.
So, you know, just checking in to see if the Sunset Park, where that's at with the stage of
Sunset Park is still undergoing remedial testing from the state, and the testing facilities are in place. The state has made no final determination with respect to moving forward, other than the testing has taken place. But I know that Councilman Yingstrom and his committee are monitoring it, but we're waiting for DEP further answers on that.
Is there a time frame on that?
Well, we were hoping, frankly, that it was going to be a couple of years ago. But if you've ever dealt with DEP, you know that they do take their time. And I think in speaking with the residents on the west side, they're saying we want them to take their time to make sure that the testing procedures, the testing analysis, and the institutional framework for making sure that the remediation takes place is done correctly. So we'll be happy to look into it, but I don't have an actual time.
Okay, and then there was also a park proposed off of Locust Avenue.
Off of a park? You mean Bellhaven?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not really a park because that's a restriction for a nature reserve, but I think Councilman Yingstrom can address that.
Yes, we're still looking into that. We did not get county funding this year. We did not get the $250,000 for it. So we're looking into other ways to progress with that nature preserve. And we are actually going to meet and talk about this at our next post-rec meeting if you wanted to come, because we wanted to discuss how we can go about getting this park moving forward.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, we would love something on the west side.
But it's, yes, so
for the
next
safety.
Parks and Rec meeting, we'll definitely discuss it. So.
Okay, yeah, a lot of children on the west side. And I know they
Yeah,
love
no, I
it.
think it's a good question, but again, I just wanted to correct it. Whatever is done or not done at Bellhaven is very, very restricted. And that's because of the restriction that were put on there as part of the grant, that it's basically a nature reserve or passive area.
Thank you.
Anybody?
I was going to ask if I could just make a quick comment, or is it the public or can I?
3 minutes.
Thank you. Councilman Horgan, she's the boss, thank you.
He's got the time.
There we go. The only comment I want to make for both sides on this issue, because I know obviously we're going to come back here in a few weeks, we're going to get more testimony from both sides. And just kind of sitting back, trying to take some notes and hear, you know, kind of like the ping pong matches going on. I think everyone's making good points and we all agree on some similar issues, and then there's lines in the sand. But if for people are coming back making testimony, the only question that I'd ask is, you know, if we're saying that there is all these state organizations and state laws are so strict, but they're not enforcing, if they are enforcing, like we're saying, do you guys expect us, the local governing body, to enforce? And if we are to enforce outside of just saying shut a business down, what would the enforcements look like from the local level? And then from up here on the dais, as the Finance Chair, Councilman Bellarmine had said earlier, we face our own struggles at the borough. Do we have the ability to fund an operation from I don't know, like a procedure of whatever type of regulations you guys would like to see from the local level? And we know, as the borough, council members, anytime we ask our borough employees to do anything, a lot of times that involves stipends or increased pay. So if the state's not regulating, and I know we can't, as the borough, or else putting a lot more money in place, I just would like to see what that solution would look like at the next meeting, if we can maybe hear some comment on that. And that's all. Thank you.
Sir, you wanted to come up?
My name is Jonathan Dubray from 14 US Highway 22 in Greenbrook. Speaking about the enforcements, the issue with the ordinance is, according to the ordinance, Bark Avenue would have to source their puppies from rescue organizations. Well, rescue organizations have no enforcement on where they get their dogs from. So they can import from Puerto Rico, they can import from Asia, they can get them from the dog meat market in Korea. So Mr. Hager would have to sell dogs that came from these foreign origins. I mean, with no vaccine records, no health records. That's what he would have to sell. So, I mean, in order to stay in business, really that's the gray cloud on this ordinance, is that really the rescues need some kind of oversee. You know, I mean, it's the pet stores have the Pet Protection Act. You know, we have the local municipal that come in yearly. We have the Division of Consumer Affairs that comes in yearly, inspects us. but rescues organizations have zero. And a lot of them, as the Washington Post article states, a lot of them are buying these dogs at dog auctions and bringing them into the state of New Jersey. And then, according to your ordinance, Park Avenue would have to then purchase these dogs from rescue organizations that have no oversee and then sell them to the public, to the people of Red Bank. So I just think that there needs to be some kind of oversee on these rescue organizations before you can pass an ordinance like this. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
I would like to say something. I'm sorry.
Anybody else?
I didn't plan on doing this, but Pam Bacatoro, 62 McLaren Street, and I am a member of the Animal Welfare Committee, whether we call us activists or maybe people that just love animals and try and protect them. But I would like to thank everybody that has stood up here and said that they have spent their life, 41 years, going and seeing the heartache and the cruelty that goes on with the animals. I would like to thank them because that is something that most of us don't see, and we wouldn't want to see it every day because it hurts and it's hard to look at. And they're not seeing just the cute little puppies running around. We all love cute little puppies, but people that see this every day, it's heart-wrenching and it's hard work. And you know, anybody that spoke on behalf of people that care about animals, and you know, whether you agree with how they feel or not, I would just like to thank them for doing the work that they've done for their life.
Thank you. Anybody else on any other issue? Okay, seeing none.
Mayor, can I just have a comment?
Please, Councilman Taylor. Well, before you have your comment, we're going to close the public portion because. Okay, so motion to close.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Councilman Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor. I do want to thank everybody. I want to echo the same sentiments of everybody who came out tonight. However, and let me just frame the picture. I have a rescue dog. I previously bought, from what I've now learned, the term is a hobby breeder. Previously, I've never bought a dog in a pet store. And so if I can walk the tightrope of putting the emotion aside that this issue obviously generates, I'm actually really disappointed in the council's action tonight. We previously tabled this discussion and this ordinance because the AWAC was supposed to meet with stakeholders, and thank you to the mayor and Kathy for going to see Gary in his shop. Michael and I have gone to his shop every small business Saturday for the last 3 years, plus other times. My comments are more to what Jim and Steve said. We're punishing a business. The AWAC didn't meet with the stakeholders as they promised. They don't have any stakeholders on their committee, which is an oversight, and so there's no counterpoint in the discussion. A committee is supposed to be differing ideas that come together to form an opinion and then present it as an advisory opinion. That's what a committee should be. And I know that there's open minds in that committee because I had great conversations at the Red Bank Birthday Expo with Debbie and Violet and Karen. We talked, and we understand we come from different points on this particular issue, but we can find common ground, and it's so overwhelming to me that we're not letting the process play out the way it should, and we're advancing this now, and then we're going to have to come back in a couple weeks, and frankly, we're going to hear all the same testimony, and it seems like a fait accompli at this point. Like, we didn't do our homework, and we're just moving something along because somebody said, yeah, we should do this. I'm really disappointed in the council for that, and I think the idea that we're targeting a business is fair. We have one business in town, and as many opinions that were put out there about hundreds of towns in 2 states, frankly, I don't care about any of that. I care about Red Bank. I care about Red Bank businesses and Red Bank issues with Red Bank residents. So everybody else who thinks that the other, 21 pet stores in New Jersey, so there's at least 100 towns that don't have a pet store, it's easy to pass that ordinance. That doesn't hurt anybody. You're actually going to hurt 7 employees, and you're going to close the storefront. I'm undertaking an effort to understand the vacancy rates on 2nd and 3rd floors in downtown Red Bank, and we're going to put another store and make it an empty storefront in prime retail location in Red Bank. So I just don't understand on those 2 particular points. I would really urge AWAC to go forward and have the conversations with the stakeholders in the community before this issue comes up, and if it does have to come back up, I say we table it until those discussions are had.
Okay, thank you. Any other members of the council have anything? Because we don't have anything for executive session tonight. No? Okay. Okay, is there a motion to close? Second? All in favor? Thank you all for coming.